All right, well, good afternoon, council, and welcome back to the council meeting of Monday, January 20th, 2025. And I just want to check before we go into our next aspect of the agenda if there's a disclosure of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof. See none, I'm just going to read our territorial acknowledgement. We'd like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather, land on which we're broadcasting from today, is the land traditionally cared for by the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Chinootan people. We also acknowledge the enduring presence and deep traditional knowledge and philosophies of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land today. Take a moment of reflection. At the beginning of this council meeting, we pause to think about the needs of our community. May we show wisdom and compassion in all our decisions. Approval of minutes, council. There's a series there for your consideration. I'm trusting we can do them as one. Oh, yeah, moved by Councillor Wright, seconded by Councillor Rowe. All those in favor? That's carried unanimously. And that brings us to presentations. Carrie Van Niekerk is our Director of Corporate Communications and has a review of 2024 for us.
That's as high as it goes. Okay. Good afternoon, Council. Thank you for letting me join you this afternoon. I'm very pleased to present our 2024 snapshot of things that our staff have achieved this year. Our city teams impact everyone across the city of Waterloo on a daily basis, and actually it would take hours and hours to go through all of the vast, impactful ways that our staff have touched everyone's lives this year. But without any further ado, this is just a snapshot of some of our 2024 highlights. Our Strategic Initiatives Division approved the city's first corporate climate action plan in January of last year. We held 2 community conversations with members of the public regarding environmental sustainability and climate action and infrastructure and transportation systems. And the team also successfully recruited a 3rd member to become a mighty team of 3 with their new sustainability officer. Our economic development team launched the Generation Park marketing in early 2024 as we adopted the sustainability standards for that area. Of course, our Lumen event was very well attended and a huge success with more than 40,000 attendees. And we also had our July 1st community picnic in our ever-improving Waterloo Park that saw more than 30,000 people come together and celebrate the day. Our Ready team has had many, many initiatives on the go, not the least of which is the recent approval of the city's very first Get Ready plan. Other highlights include their artist initiatives, the Rainbow Crosswalk event, various learning days and employee symposium representation, and the photo attached there is staff on Orange Shirt Day. The executive officer to the CAO, of course, we had our affordable and attainable housing project at 2025 University Avenue East announced last year. And we also had very high support for the hospital site decision, and we're all very happy to learn that that's going to be in Waterloo. Our facility design management services team has been doing lots of work to keep all of our buildings running and upgraded. And of course, they had a huge highlight with the opening of the new autonomous washroom in Uptown Waterloo. Community planning and outreach services touches a lot of people across our community, including a lot of our older adults with our senior health fair. The quote is quite long, but I am going to take a moment and read it. This afternoon, I attended the Seniors Health Fair. When I first saw the poster, I thought, what can I learn about senior health and their care? After all, I was a nurse. Those self-defeating thoughts were me trying not to be vulnerable by admitting that I do not know everything. This mindset is familiar to me. Then my voice of reasoning said, why not go? You may learn new and valuable information. I followed the latter voice and I'm so glad I did. The event was well organized and informative, with 40 community vendors to holistically address seniors' health. I even got my blood pressure checked by a pleasant, caring Waterloo paramedic staff. Attending and chatting at the different booths was definitely worth my time, and to top it all off, these invaluable health services were all provided free of charge. It's moments like these that make you truly appreciate the community we live in. I can't recommend it enough. Thanks to the City of Waterloo and KW for Ontario Health Team and everyone who contributed to this fantastic afternoon. Our museum team has been putting together programs like the Levi Carroll story at the Log Cabin in Waterloo Park, Day of Play, Doors Open. They're a huge participant in Lumen, and of course our Remembrance Day reflections. The museum brings our history to life every day. Municipal Enforcement Services. There's been a great expansion of the assisted sidewalk snow clearing program to help with winter mobility for everyone. There's a rental housing review underway, which of course we'll hear more about this evening. There's an updated business licensing launch, and they've been collaborating with other municipalities on the use of fireworks. Our Fire Rescue Services team. They've ordered 2 new replacement pumpers and 1 new squad unit as they continue the implementation of the updated fire master plan. They've been working with staff across the city on building emergency response procedure implementation, and there was some significant engagement with diverse youth for the Emergency Services Career Camp in partnership with our Ready team. Recreation Services has been working to replace our infrastructure and make sure everything is available for days of play across the city. The Waterloo Memorial Recreation Complex saw the upgrade of the electronic scoreboards and audio systems. And the Manulife Soccer and Sports Center at Bechtel Park has a refreshed artificial turf replacement, and we've heard really good comments from people who have gotten to use that. Parks, Forestry, and Cemetery Services have been upgrading sports fields with Diamonds 3 and 4 at Waterloo Park, finally opened this summer. And the goal was to upgrade to better meet the needs for capacity across the city. Corporate communications, near and dear to my heart. Our new digital service team has hosted many sessions with over 34 users to improve our digital products and use the direct feedback from residents of all different backgrounds and implement over 200 responses to improve our website services work. We've increased our Engage Waterloo subscribers to over 7,000, completed over 500 design tasks, issued any number of media releases, sent a great deal of News City newsletters, and grew our various subscriber e-newsletter mailing lists by over 15,000 subscribers. And we added over 4,000 followers to our various social media channels. Financial planning and asset management. Of course, our 2024 asset management plan was approved, reporting on our approximately $4 billion in city assets. We've applied for 29 grants in 2024 with a potential value of $76 million. And finance has worked through various policy updates to help increase the efficiencies across the city. Revenue and accounting assisted with the PeopleSoft HRMS upgrade, Human Resource Management System upgrade. In the fall of last year, new functionality was released to help make it easier for managers and to update the self-service information that's available in there. And they also rolled out self-entry for our contract staff. So something full-time staff had available, something make it more efficient for our leadership. Also, our tax and water billing portal has had some significant success. We have now twice as many accounts through the portal when compared to e-post and mailing. So 23% users in tax and 33% of users in water. Total payments received on the portal are $25 million, and we're getting an annual cost savings of $74,000 through all of those online subscribers through that system. I will say the Canada Post strike was a little bit of a boon there for that system. Human Resources continues to welcome new staff to the city. We implemented a successful employee symposium and wellness fair internally for staff to attend, and we had the most people ever attend from our teams. We have a new online talent pool builder system to help streamline our application and recruitment process. And as many of you attended throughout the year, we have a new employee welcome orientation session that's attended by senior leadership and council for all our new staff. Fleet and procurement. Fleet completed over 2,400 work orders this year and maintained 100% on-time vehicle inspections to keep everything on the road and functioning. And they're finalizing the purchase of new replacement and expansion units that we need, 16% of which are zero emission. Our procurement team facilitated a number of procurements, received $1.6 million of goods into inventory, and issued $1.66 million out of inventory, which I'm told is okay because we maintain stuff in inventory. IMTS, our Information Management Technology Services team, continues to support our business units within the city, providing technical and operational support for St. Patrick's Day, improving cellular phone coverage at our fire stations, upgrading the HRMS system, upgrading our Watson mobile inspection app for improved functionality, creating a dashboard for streamlined water sampling data, and expanding dark fiber connectivity to the rec complex and 146 Dearborn Place, as well as transitioning our entire network to Microsoft 365 for improved productivity. Legislative services. We had 474 happy couples married at City Hall and 824 licensed to marry. Staff coordinated council's attendance at 568 community events, 11 engagement opportunities, and people meeting with officials and constituents at town hall meetings, events hosted by the office, community conversations, and more. And as a wonderful collaboration with the Ready Team and Immigration Partnerships Waterloo, we had 49 people from 9 different countries become Canadian citizens in a citizenship service right here in council chambers. Our building team has been very busy this year. A new online building permit portal is on the way, and the team has also spent quite a bit of time preparing for the 2,400 changes to the 2024 Ontario Building Code that just came into effect January 1st of this year. City Utilities team. The Uptown Waterloo Square received an upgrade to the public drinking water fountain this year. We have the ongoing leak detection program that they're responsible for. The wastewater team deployed a new crawling camera unit. There is a picture there. We're not going to get into what that picture is showing as it crawls through the pipe, but it's a new inspection technology to assess the condition of our sewers. Our stormwater team installed low-impact development infiltration technology to help manage stormwater, and our compliance and programs prepared their annual reports and complied with all of our environmental compliance approvals. Our engineering team completed the sanitary master plan for improving the city's sanitary system to support our population growth through 2051. Our road reconstruction multi-asset prioritization tool provides a transparent and structured approach to prioritizing our projects to make sure our budgets and resources are allocated as properly as we can. And project delivery, they completed various capital projects with estimated construction value of over $24 million. Road resurfacing, multi-use trails, public space improvements, stream rehabilitation, and storm pond cleanouts are just some examples. Our planning team, phase 1 of the official plan review was approved December 2nd. The last comprehensive update was in 2012. We issued our first 2 affordable housing grant program grants to help increase the supply of affordable housing in the city. And from January to mid-October, the Planning Division received draft plan and zone change applications for more than 7,000 new units. That doesn't include site plan applications, minor variances, consents, or other development applications. So Waterloo does continue to process and improve new housing bits. Our transportation team continues our road safety implementation plan supporting Vision Zero principles for all of our road users. The 2024 Ontario Bike Summit hosted here in Waterloo was a huge success, and we are now into year 2 of the citywide speed limit reduction project. There are more great things to come in 2025. Thank you for letting me share this snapshot of things from 2024.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. Any questions for Carrie? It's always nice to see such a great overview. Thank you so much. The mayor has just a quick question.
I just wanted to say thanks so much for putting, first of all, that presentation together. I know there's a lot more projects and work that didn't actually make it into that. These are the snapshots, but it's great to have this so that we, when we're talking to people, responding to people, talking to people in the community all the time, we can point them to this to show. It's important to show citizens and residents in Waterloo and beyond, the kind of work that is happening by the experts and the team that we do have on staff and how the city is continuing to progress. So thank you so much for putting this together for us. It's great to hear this, and we know it's kind of the tip of the iceberg, but yeah, through you, thank you, and thanks to all the staff who contribute every day to make life a little bit better for residents in Waterloo and people who are coming here to study, learn, work, and play.
Thank you. Thanks. We're on to item 8, staff reports. 8A, short-term rental licensing bylaw update and grant funding application. We have a presentation from Grant Curlew. Welcome, Grant.
Good afternoon, Council and members of the public. My name is Grant Curlew. I'm the Manager of Licensing and Standards, and I'm here to talk to you today about short-term rental regulations. So some background. In June of 2024, Council directed staff to review our current rental licensing regulations. This includes our short-term or our low-rise residential rental bylaw, short-term rental regulations, and mid and high-rise regulations. Also recently, the federal government launched a grant for short-term rental enforcement to support enforcement of short-term rental regulations. Over the last few months, staff have conducted extensive engagement related to short-term rentals. That engagement ran between October and December. We conducted some joint engagement with the City of Kitchener, who's also currently looking at short-term rental regulations. We had over 100 people respond to our online Engage Waterloo survey, which was advertised through social media, radio, and on the city's website. Staff also met with post-secondary students and student groups to gather their input on the regulations. And we also hosted in conjunction with the City of Kitchener 2 in-person engagement sessions specifically to discuss short-term rental regulations. And we had over 40 short-term rental operators attend those 2 sessions. The feedback that we received through the surveys and through our engagement was many respondents felt that short-term rentals do impact the availability of long-term housing. They also had negative perceptions of short-term rentals, that they impacted noise, increased traffic, and a lack of accountability for the owners of those types of properties. Some suggestions included stricter licensing requirements and limiting short-term rentals to owner-occupied properties. Some respondents that were in favor of short-term rentals highlighted the impacts, such as improved maintenance standards in some short-term rentals, increased tourism, and flexibility for housing solutions on a temporary basis. They also emphasized that it supports the local economy and tourism by creating jobs for cleaners, maintenance workers, and other service providers. Again, our online Engage survey had 101 responses, with 15% of the respondents identifying as short-term rental operators and 85 identifying as citizens or other interested parties. 58% of the respondents to the survey felt that short-term rentals have a negative impact on the surrounding community. 57% of respondents felt that additional regulations for short-term rentals would improve the safety and maintenance standards at those properties. And 56% of the respondents felt that short-term rentals should be limited to an owner-occupied property. This pie chart just depicts what I was just speaking to, with the green section being 45% in favor of limiting to owner-occupied properties. The gold section were in favor, but did recognize that it may have impacts on operators that don't live at the properties. And then the purple and pink sections were not in favor of limiting to an owner-occupied property. So some of the impacts that staff have identified short-term rentals have. So we currently have, we estimate we have 500 active short-term rentals within the city, which represents anywhere from 2 to 5% of available rental units. Staff estimate that approximately 200 to 250 short-term rentals would fall within these proposed regulations, with approximately 100 units likely to be converted back to long-term rentals or returned to the housing stock. Those 100 would be the units that aren't being operated as owner-occupied properties currently. So these proposed regulations would address rental unit safety, some of the neighborhood nuisance concerns, and the impact on the availability of long-term houses. our housing supply, but still giving owner-occupied property owners some flexibility and ability to generate income at their property. As part of our review, we completed a municipal comparison. As you can see from the chart, many of the municipalities that we did review do limit short-term rentals to an owner-occupied property, and most, if not all, of the municipalities that we reviewed do limit the consecutive number of nights rented to one person between 28 and 30 days. Our proposed regulations include the addition of a definition in the current low-rise residential rental bylaw for short-term rentals. We propose to prohibit the operation of a short-term rental business in all classes of license under our current bylaw, except Class B, which is our owner-occupied unit type. We propose prohibiting the offering of a short-term rental unit to the same person for greater than 30 consecutive days, and then prohibiting the offering of a short-term rental unit for more than 275 days in a calendar year, which represents about 3/4 of the year. That's all I had for my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, Council? Councillor Wright.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. Thank you very much for this report. Definitely, Ward 7 residents have reached out over the years to talk about short-term rentals, both on the pros and cons side. So it's really helpful to have this data. It's really interesting data. I just have a couple of questions for clarification. Where it's indicated that 50% of the short-term rental units currently are single rooms, does that mean that those are part of the owner-occupied units?
Through the chair to Councillor Wright, that's what we believe. The data is not easily accessible, so we're kind of making some assumptions and estimations based on the data we have, but assuming that those single rooms would be within an owner-occupied property.
Okay, that'd be really interesting to know. The other thing I was just trying to get a sense of as well is how many of the units might be in older rent-controlled buildings, and if we have any sense of that. Just because our vacancy rate has gone up recently, and so I'm just curious about that.
Unfortunately, we don't have data on that. As part of our plan to apply for the federal grant application, we would be seeking some funding for specialized software, which would be able to drill down more into the details of where these properties are and being able to identify more accurately, what kind of housing types they are actually offering.
Okay, so that's great. That's what the grant will then cover. So the other question I had for clarification is just in the initial chart about with comparison of other cities, it shows Hamilton's licensing as being over $1,000, which is a real outlier. And do you know why that is?
Unfortunately, I'm not sure. I think I think each municipality bases the fees on cost of delivering the program and the market size. So it would be hard for me to speak to why they chose that amount. But we would our fees would remain the same for a Class B license under a rental licensing bylaw, so it wouldn't be changed compared to the current approved fees for 2025.
Okay, thanks. That's all I had.
Councillor Rowe.
Thank you, through you, Chair.
Sorry, Councillor Rowe did have
Oh,
her
I'm
hand up
sorry.
first, and then I did have you, Councillor Hanmer. Sorry, my apologies.
No worries, thank you. Thank you so much, Grant. I'm wondering if you can advise what the fines would be, like if there's consideration for the fines for homes that are not registered.
Through the chair to Councillor Rowe, we currently have approved set fines in our administrative monetary penalties bylaw under our rental licensing bylaw, which are $400 for a first offense and increased to $800 to a second or subsequent offense. If those don't get in compliance, we are able to rely on the Provincial Offence Act fines and summons a violator to a court process where the fines can be significantly higher.
Thank you, and I asked because I was seeing that BC has $3,000 as a fine, and that's quite a substantial deterrent, I'm sure, for some owners. So thank you about the court process, that's interesting. And I'm wondering as well if there are any anticipated loopholes that would allow owners to skirt the bylaw.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge or loophole will be verifying that the owners actually reside at the properties they are claiming to reside at. Again, I think we do have an experienced enforcement team that will be able to address those issues and make sure that that's kept to a minimum.
Great, thank you.
Councillor Hanmer.
Through you, Chair, and sorry, Councillor Rowe, for jumping in before. Grant, thank you very much for the presentation and the information. I did find it interesting. It also prompted a number of questions from residents in my ward, which Ward 1 typically doesn't have a lot of short-term rentals, but we seem to be getting there. And it's more from a compliance standpoint, and I appreciate that some of the owner-occupied rentals may start to help with that, but for those, there still could be maintenance compliance issues. Garbage in particular seems to be the nature of most of the complaints. What can you share about that, and what can we reassure people that there will be compliance?
Through the chair to Councillor Hamner. So under our current rental licensing bylaw, there is requirements for the owner, particularly around garbage storage and how they handle snow clearing and lot maintenance, like grass cutting. So they do, through the licensing process, they have to review those requirements and sign off that they're compliant with them. We do have a pretty robust enforcement program for lot maintenance in the summer and property standards issues, so we can respond to those as we would any other long-term rental property.
So the neighborhood should just continue to contact bylaw as they currently are doing?
Yeah, I suggest that's probably the best approach. The benefit to licensing and identifying the short-term rentals within the community is then we will have data to map and better correlate where the problems are happening, if they're happening at long-term properties or short-term, and then we can refine our regulations to address those problems in the future.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Vasek.
Thanks through you, Chair Freeman. Thanks so much for this. It's good to see you coming forward, because in June we were looking at a various rental housing review options that we've approved, and this is the first one to come back. So it's a really important part of making headway on making sure that more affordable housing and more housing is available. And so to that end, I have two questions, but to that end I have one, which is the report says that you anticipate 100 units will be returned to regular housing stock. So I'm curious how you're going to go about figuring out if that's the case as part of the evaluation.
Through the chair to Councillor Vasek. What we can do through the licensing program is, and through the software we're requesting, is identify where these short-term rental units are at the beginning of the program, and then compare that in a year or two to see what reductions we have made in terms of the short-term rentals. So our goals are to increase the number of short-term rentals we currently have licensed, but decrease the overall number of short-term rentals that are operating within the city, keeping them to the owner-occupied property types.
Super. And one of the things that the report touches on is about the connection between short-term rentals and tourism. And but I understand you don't have much information on if or how the tourism sector is already impacted, because that data isn't available. But I am curious how you're going to be thinking about the tourism sector as you implement the program and as you evaluate the program, and how will that be considered? And if there is going to be an impact on the tourism sector, how will that be mitigated?
Good question. I think it's difficult for us to measure that directly. I do There is data from the province that suggests the occupancy rate, the average occupancy rate for hotels in the area currently sits around 62%, I believe. And the provincial average for occupancy rate for hotels is around 70%. So I anticipate there is some additional capacity in our hotels, which hopefully can absorb some of those. And maybe some opportunity for more owner-occupied properties to explore a short-term rental situation where they want to, have someone, a guest for a weekend or something. So maybe some more opportunities there.
And thank you, that's helpful. And have you connected with organizations like Explore Waterloo about this, or were they part of this?
We haven't connected with those organizations, no.
Might you?
We certainly can through our ongoing review, for sure.
Thank you, through you, Chair Freeman. Councillor Basak took my question there on the capacity in the hotels, but I'm wondering if you can add in, just within the financial implications section, there wasn't really any discussion on the MAT, the Municipal Accommodations Tax, and it is my understanding that some short-term rentals were paying the MAT, and I'm curious if we have any data or information about what the financial impact might be.
Sure. Through the chair to Councillor Bodley. So our as part of our background, we did connect with Airbnb and a representative from that organization, and they were not overly in favor of remitting the municipal accommodation tax, but have been through an agreement with the region. Right now, we have no data to cross-reference to see if they're remitting the appropriate amount or not. And then currently, my understanding is organizations like Vrbo or Booking.com, which also offer short-term rentals through their platform, have not been remitting any municipal accommodation tax through their services. So through licensing, we will have a tool to at least make sure that the short-term rentals that are operating are paying the appropriate taxes.
That's great. That was my follow-up question, so thank you for that. But through you, Chair Freeman, a second question, a point of clarification I'd like is, when you say owner-occupied, would that encompass somebody who had like a secondary suite in their basement? It's not just somebody who owns a property and is away for a couple of months and is renting it on weekends, or away for weekends and renting it on weekends. Would they be permitted as a owner occupied in the main housing unit to still operate a short-term rental as a secondary suite?
So the way we've set up the amendments, they would not. So it would have to be within an owner-occupied unit. If they had a secondary dwelling on their property, that would have to be operated as a long-term rental property. So they could potentially rent a room in their house, or they could rent the whole unit if they were gone for, let's say, a weekend and just wanted to rent out their unit. They could potentially do that as well. But the unit would have to be primarily owner-occupied.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, I just wondered if you could comment. I realize it's not part of this directly, but there's a bigger review going on, and we're getting a lot of questions with regard to rent evictions, and maybe you can help me to just understand where that fits into the other work that you're doing.
Sure. So we're currently looking at, as part of our broader review, at all types of rental regulations. And through a report last June, we did commit to looking further into some ways to address the rent eviction problem that exists. Some of those are supports, and some of those items might be a rent eviction bylaw, but we're still reviewing that and do plan to come back to council with a more comprehensive kind of report on what solutions there might be and how we can address that.
Yeah, I think that as the housing stock accessibility decreases, that looking at ways to keep what we currently have is going to be really important, especially from an affordability perspective. And Hamilton has a rent eviction bylaw in place, so they would fall under the same municipal act as us. I know that Toronto has one too, and it might be that we maybe need to look to advance that work more quickly, and maybe council needs to look at ways to better resource the team so that we can help you achieve those goals, because I'm getting increasingly worried about that.
Yeah, and we are keeping a close eye on Hamilton and Toronto's programs. They've recently just launched, I know Hamilton's been working on it for a while, but they actually just went live January 1st with their program. So we are keeping an eye on how that rolls out and what challenges and successes they have.
That's great. Thank you very much. Really appreciate that. So council, we have a recommendation in your package here. Do I have someone interested to advance that? It's moved by Councillor Rowe and seconded by Councillor Vasek. All those in favor? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very kindly. The next, we're on to item 8B, delegation of signing authority, draft plan of condominium. Any questions on that, council? I know that Mr. Cotter is available to answer any questions if you have them on that. Seeing none, do I have a mover of that recommendation? Moved by Councillor Wright, seconded by Councillor Hanmer. All those in favor? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, we're into public meetings, informal public meetings. So this is an informal public meeting to consider item 9A, draft plan of subdivision 30T-24401, official plan amendment number 62, and zoning bylaw amendment Z24-21 for Waterloo Commons JV Incorporated, 651 to 663 Herb Street West, and lands owned by the region of Waterloo, southwest corner of Herb Street West and Ira Needles Boulevards. There will be no decisions made today. Council and the public are seeing this application for the first time. Council is looking for feedback from interested parties with respect to this application. The comments will be taken, today's comments will be taken into consideration in developing a staff position on this application, and a staff report will be considered by council during a formal public meeting at a future date. All property owners within 120 meters of the subject lands and anyone who signs the registry will receive notice of the formal public meeting. Anybody who wants further notice of this application, including the formal public meeting and passage of any bylaw, should sign the appropriate registry located on the desk at the rear of the council chambers. If there is more than one registry, please make sure you are signing the appropriate one. The planner, Wendy Fisher, will now provide a brief overview of the application.
Thank you. Good afternoon, members of council and public here today. The applications being presented for information include an official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment, and draft plan of subdivision that apply to 651 to 663 Herb Street West, as well as regional lands. The applicant, Waterloo Commons JV Incorporated, is represented today by Mr. Dave Aston of MHBC Planning. So the subject site is approximately 5.7 hectares in size and is located on the west side of Waterloo, more specifically on the southwest corner of Herb Street West and Ira Needles Boulevard intersection. The easterly half of the property contains an existing multi-tenant commercial plaza and associated parking, referred to as Waterloo Commons. The westerly half of the property contains a stormwater management pond owned and operated by the region of Waterloo, as well as open space. In terms of surrounding land uses, to the west we have a hydro corridor, lands owned by Hydro One, which contains a high voltage transmission lines running north-south. To the northwest of the property is Costco, warehousing, associated parking, and gas bar. To the north is Herb Street, and then beyond Herb Street is another multi-tenant commercial plaza known as the West Side Marketplace. On the northeast and southeast corners, we have commercial uses, and then in behind those commercial uses is residential. To the east is Ira Needles Boulevard, and then immediately east of that is a retirement residence. And then to the south, we have a pitch and putt golf course, vacant land further south, and then the boardwalk, which is a collection of commercial uses as well as medical offices. Just a few pieces for additional context on this particular application. The subject lands were subject to a privately initiated study in 2019. And the purpose of that study was really to identify a location for a new public collector road connecting from Herb Street West through to Thorndale Drive and Boardwalk Roundabout, sort of in the south end of the map here. The study area is outlined in yellow that's before you and included a number of different landowners. It was designed to be completed in 2 phases. The first phase was really to carry out a study much like an EA in that they would be characterizing the area, looking for road and servicing options, and then identifying a preferred road and servicing option. Phase 2 of that study was to take those preferred road and servicing measures and further implement them through draft plans of subdivisions and zoning bylaw amendments on a more individual property basis. Much of the work for phase 1 was completed, including identification of that preferred road alignment and servicing strategy. However, during our review of the application, some of the properties changed hands, and that new owner wanted the opportunity to take a look at the applications and better understand what was being proposed. And it was to be implemented through an OPA, which was never advanced. The other item that I wanted just to bring to council's attention is that the road connection that I've referred to in terms of going from Herb Street to Thorndale Drive has been incorporated in several council-approved documents, including the latest being the update to the city's official plan. And it amended Schedule E to identify the potential future road connection, as mentioned, between Herb Street and the Thorndale Drive roundabout. In terms of this application in the current official plan framework, I'm going to refer to sort of the easterly half and the westerly half. On the easterly portion, which is in red, the lands are designated mixed-use neighborhood commercial, and that allows for, it's really a designation that's commercial focused. It is meant to support the commercial day-to-day needs of the surrounding neighborhood. The lands are also designated as medium-high density, which affords or contemplates a maximum height of 40 meters. And then on the west portion, it's shown in green. The lands are designated open space, and a portion of the lands are locally significant wetland. The open space does contain stormwater management facilities and the like, and the intent of that particular designation is just to contribute to the connectivity of the comprehensive open space throughout the city. And in terms of a few other designations that apply to all of the property, the lands are designated specific provision area 8, and these specific policies refer to the requirements for a retail impact study, and it puts maximum caps on the gross leasable area for the overall site as well as individual units. The lands are also within a minor corridor, designated greenfield area, and wellhead protection area 8. In terms of the current zoning framework, again, in terms of the easterly portion, the lands are currently zoned mixed-use neighborhood commercial, or C2-40, again, which permits a wide range of commercial-type uses. It does have a site-specific provision on the property currently, C86, and those are just simply regulations that were intended to facilitate the existing commercial plaza. And then those lands are also within parking overlay area E. In terms of the western portion, those lands are currently designated future determination, and this is really a placeholder zone that identifies the fact that redevelopment is anticipated, and it allows for the uses and buildings existed on the day the comprehensive zoning bylaw was approved in 2018. So at this time, the applicant is proposing to expand the existing commercial plaza, create a municipal road that would connect through to Herb Street via a new roundabout, and create a stormwater management pond in the northwest corner of the property adjacent to Herb Street. The new commercial plaza or building area is approximately 4,900 square meters, of which 3,251 square meters would be devoted to a food store. Again, these are the kind of conceptual plans. As part of the applications, there is a land exchange with the region that is required, and that would be to consolidate the stormwater management facility into that northwest corner, and then create a larger contiguous block that allows for that commercial use along the backside of the property. To facilitate that development, the applicant is proposing an official plan amendment. The purpose of that amendment would be, again, as it applies to just the westerly lands only, would be to redesignate the open space to commercial, designate the lands as mixed-use neighborhood commercial and medium-high density. Again, that's to mimic what's happening currently in place for the easterly side. And then it would also allow for removing the westerly lands from Schedule A3, which is our open space land use schedule, as well as Schedule A4, which is for natural systems. In terms of the request being made for the zoning bylaw amendment, again, the applicant is looking to rezone the lands from future determination to mixed-use neighborhood commercial 2, or C2-40, as well as parks and recreation, or OS1, as shown on the image that's before you. And again, the purpose of the OS1 would be to capture much of that stormwater management pond. And lastly, the proposed draft plan of subdivision, it contains a number of different blocks. One block would be proposed for the existing commercial plaza. 2 additional blocks would be for the new commercial use. There is a road widening block for the conveyance of land to the region for the purposes of the roundabout. Lands would also be conveyed to the city for a future road, as shown at the top of the page at Street 1. There is a future development block that contains currently a temporary turning circle, and then a stormwater management block, as I say, in that northwest corner. A number of plans and reports have been submitted to the city for review, and they are out for circulation and comments. They're all listed on the screen that are before you. Some of the aspects that we'll be having a closer look at as it includes the stormwater management strategy, the location size of the proposed road, and any trail connections that might occur across the site. In terms of next steps and process, after tonight's informal public meeting, we would be working to summarize all of the issues and comments that have been received on the applications, provide that to the applicant, work to resolve any issues that may be identified, and then come back to council at a future date with recommendations for your consideration. And that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Questions, council? I had one. Can I trouble you just to go back to your overview where you showed the proposed uses? Yeah, this one would be great. So am I right in reading this plan that dashed yellow area is the only area that's owned by the region? And the balance is owned by a private landowner?
That's correct.
And then, and the region owned that with the intended purpose for that to be the road alignment, and then this is recommending the road alignment move to the west, is that right?
The area dashed in yellow is actually currently used for a stormwater management pond.
Oh, I see.
So there is a pond out there. It was a pond that was created in about 2004 as part of the Ira Needles, when Ira Needles was constructed, and they needed to manage that stormwater management pond, so the region built that pond. So what the applicant is proposing to do is a bit of a land swap with the region, in that they would acquire the area dashed in yellow, and that any stormwater management runoff that was attributed to that pond would therefore be sent to the new pond.
Okay. And then as a part of this, so in the OP, we've designated a portion of the land as OS open space and a portion of the lands as mixed-use neighborhood commercial. Is that correct? Like that's in the OP or that's in the zoning?
Let me just go back
Like, was
to.
that your zoning map? This is your zoning map, right?
You're right.
That's the
So
OP,
This is the OP where it's designated as open space currently right now.
right?
Yeah.
And then in the zoning, it's currently future determination in mixed-use neighborhood commercial. So the C240 currently allows for potentially a residential use on that property, is that correct?
It does, there is provisions, I think, in the mixed-use neighborhood commercial that generally does allow for it, but there are other provisions in the official plan that, in this particular instance, would preclude residential due to the distance from the
Okay.
region's landfill.
Okay, so the land use compatibility potential has been highlighted here. And that would include, that would be brought in as well on the, if the future determination area was reconsidered to be the mixed-use neighborhood commercial, those provisions would come with it, is that the intent?
Well, I think if it was any sensitive uses that were proposed as part of the development, we would be looking at land use compatibility as a item to review for sure. Yes.
Okay, all right, because when I tried to look online, I was trying to see what you were listing as additional reports, and I hadn't seen that there, so I wasn't sure how that was being managed, so, okay, that's helpful. I'm sure that as we receive the other presentations, this will better come to light for me. Thank you. Sorry, there was no questions, and then I stimulated questions, so I apologize for that.
It's all good. It's all good. Thank you. Through you, Chair Freeman. My question is about the road alignment. Maybe it might be helpful to have that. Yeah, that one's fine. So one, broadly speaking, is this you referenced a study that was done in 2019 for the road alignment. Broadly speaking, does this align with the road alignment that was contemplated in 2019?
Through you, Chair, to Councillor Bodley. The beginning portion, it does. The study, as I say, kind of looked at the broader area from Herb Street through to Thorndale. The roundabout does align, and it does, again, it was a very high-level preferred road alignment that was, but yes, for all intents and purposes, it does.
Okay, and as a follow-up through that, I mean, I respect that this is in Ward 1, but there's a lot of interest in this road from my residents to the north in Ward 2, particularly those in Vista Hills coming down Platinum and looking for alternative methods, especially trying to alleviate traffic pressures at the urban Ira Needles roundabout related to Costco. It's like, from my perspective, a crucially important piece of municipal infrastructure, this road. I guess my first question is, the region is out there widening Herb Street currently to 4 lanes in this area. Are there synergies, benefits of moving this ahead with this proposed development for the region that's currently doing work out there, or have we gotten past that point already? Because I haven't been out there in a while, so I'm looking for some thoughts on where the region is at with respect to widening the road.
Through you, Chair Freeman. Yes, there would certainly be synergies to dovetail both of those processes together. I think the intent or the hope is that this project or a road alignment would be further along in terms of being for the region to be able to work with it. We are still in a window where the region would be able to, bless you, pick up any portion of the road that is identified. I believe that they're looking at spring to fall 2026 for any construction. So we are still in a window of possibilities, yes.
Okay, and then connected to that, if I may, through you, Chair Freeman, is the city portion of this capital. So we had we have an approved capital project for this year / last year for this Iron Needles bypass and bypass road. And I think from our perspective at the city, it was contingent on when the region was out there doing their work, obviously, to take advantage of the synergies that you alluded to. So again, from your perspective, is all of this sort of coming together nicely for us to be able to get this road moving, should this development be approved?
Through you, Chair Freeman, this is the start of the overall road alignment. As mentioned, there was a previous study. It looked for the road alignment from start to finish. This would only be looking at a segment of that road. So it is a start. We would be needing the other landowners of the intervening lands to also come forward and with the appropriate applications so we could secure all the components of the road.
Right, and my apologies if I may just add one more to that on the same line. So obviously, I know that council has received some feedback from the developer, or the landowner to the south of this property, but there also is a city component to this further south. I'm looking for some clarification, I guess, on exactly what the city's role is from this capital project that was approved for this year. Is it all on the private landowners here, or where does the city come in terms of activating the build out of the road under that capital project?
Through you, Councillor Freeman, I believe the capital project does identify a certain dollar value associated with the project, and that the city would be responsible for 50% of that overall road, where the developers would be responsible for the remainder of the costs.
There might be other information on that road that's not necessarily related to this application, and maybe we can direct those through to the commissioner. Councillor Wright?
Thank you. Through you, Chair. I'm just wondering if you can help me clarify on the visual representation of this, where the wetland features are in comparison to the stormwater features. Because I think what we've seen for the most part is the stormwater feature, and I'm just trying to get a sense of, there is a little wetland area it's referred to in the report. Like, I couldn't tell whether it was not in this parcel of land.
Through you, Chair Freeman. This is the portion of, This is the portion of the property that aligns with the region's existing stormwater management facility. There is a second facility in this corner right here. As you're driving by, you might notice very, very tall grasses. Mm-hmm. That is a stormwater management pond as well. And it is also generally what the delineation of the locally significant wetlands would be in this area.
Okay, and the report refers to the Waldo East Wetland Complex, and so I'm just trying to figure out where that is.
You're really testing my memory now.
I'm just trying to understand the
enough.
ecological functions. I like the stormwater part is very clear, but the wetland part is not clear.
Fair enough. Through you, Chair Freeman, it may be something that I will have to follow up on. I do have identified documents and some images that will help identify what wetlands are where.
Okay.
To be honest with you, I can't off the top of my head remember where that complex is located.
I'll follow up on this afterwards.
Okay, seeing no other questions. Just going back to my council agenda here. So we have a delegation as well by Dave Aston from MHBC. Welcome, Dave. I understand the last time you came here that we kept you a little bit longer than you originally anticipated.
Last time I came here, I didn't even expect to speak, so at least I'm here this evening. So thanks for the opportunity to speak. Thanks to Ms. Fisher for the overview. It really was quite detailed and covered off a lot about what's being proposed in the process. So maybe I'll just try and cover off what I think a couple of the questions were. And right off the start, if there was some confusion on what was being proposed and if residential is permitted or not permitted, what I can say is our application does not propose any residential, and we're not intending to build any residential. So if we need to work with staff to clean up that designation, we're happy to do that. With regard to the synergy with the region, we are in fact setting up, and just this week, we're gonna have a follow-up with the region and city staff on how we can coordinate for the construction and implementation of the roundabout Herb Street. So we've continued dialogue with the region as we've been working through these various processes. And as mentioned, there's been a lot of work done to get to kind of the point that we're at here relative to not just the roundabout, but to where the road is going. Not sure what happened there. Anyway, that screen died. There we go. So as was mentioned, there's some new commercial area proposed. The yellow outline area is the existing swim facility, which you heard. That swim facility then outletted to another component of open space that acted as stormwater management as well. There's a culvert that goes under Herb Street. A lot of history involved with this area and the creation of that open space and that area that is wet from the landfill, construction of Iron Needles, construction of Herb Street, and really ultimately it being identified more as an anthropogenic feature created over time with stormwater management components associated with it. At the end of the day, there'll be a storm pond in that area that will control and accommodate flows from the regional facility, which I'd call Iron Needles Boulevard. There's still an easement along the back of the property that would then find its way into that pond. Any new works associated with the roundabout on Herb Street, and then also accommodate the portion of the new city road that would drain into that stormwater management facility. The other thing that this is doing with that roundabout is we're going to be looking at modifying some of the existing accesses on the site to help minimize conflicts of traffic flow as well. And what's important is that this roundabout is going to locate and replace that traffic signal. So we think it's going to be helpful with regard to traffic movements through this area. Just by way of a bit of background, this area has been subject to some study for quite a long time. Even before the work was done from the landowners, the city was looking into this area as part of the City of Waterloo Integrated Multimodal Transportation Study. So that was being looked at some time ago, and as Councillor Bodley had mentioned, through some of that work, this new road was identified as part of the city's development charges and capital forecast, and actually has been for a number of years. It just kind of keeps getting bumped along as we work to find a solution to the location of the road and start the implementation of the road. The roundabout itself, the location was identified as part of the region's Herb Street Class EA. It was identified as a potential location. So that location kind of serves the point of the roundabout at Herb Street. And then the other point kind of at the other end is Thorndale Drive. As part of what was submitted and referenced by Ms. Fisher was OPA Official Plan Amendment 27, work was completed to look at various options or alternatives for a road network. That was done as part of a comprehensive overview to address both city and GRCA policies as it relates to infrastructure and the consideration of infrastructure relative to features in regard to the city and GRCA policies. So that analysis looked at different alternatives, determined a preferred alternative. What's being proposed with this plan implements that first chunk of the alternative on the subject lands, and then the future connection from these lands to Thorndale Drive. Those lands are actually subject to another special policy area that requires a study associated with development applications on those lands. And so that would be something that those landowners could look at and look at different alternatives as to how this public road is going to connect from the edge of the subject lands to Thorndale Drive. There were a few alternatives that were looked at in the past. I think there's other alternatives that could be looked at, and this is just providing one end of that road. As far as technical studies, I don't want to go into all of them, but there's a couple just to point out. The Functional Servicing Stormwater Management Report, we had a number of meetings with city staff on the phase 1 that was mentioned and the phase 2 to ensure that two things were happening, that the studies and the work that was being completed for this application looked at this application relative to ensuring the right infrastructure was being designed and planned for these lands, and then ensuring that at the same time the work that was being done here was not having any implications on any adjacent lands and the future development of those lands. The environmental impact study, this was a scoped component. The phase 1 of the work looked at the features. There was a lot of field work done. And then the scoped EIS picked up on that work and did more of a detailed policy analysis running through the GRCA wetland policies, the city's natural heritage policies as it relates to wetlands and then other wetlands and then other open space areas and how infrastructure is permitted and what criteria you need to look at for consideration of infrastructure within those areas. So the EIS went through all of that detail, and that was done in context of a number of discussions and a scope that was reviewed and considered by city staff. So there's been a number of studies along the way in support of what's being proposed. So just in conclusion, our opinion is that what's being proposed is consistent with the policy framework that's in place. We're dealing with the PPS 2024, the city official plan. We're conformed to the regional plan, which is now the city plan, but in any event, we're conforming to that. The new public road that's being proposed on these lands provides opportunity for connection to Thorndale Drive, which is something that's been contemplated for some time and was recently put onto the city's official plan as part of Schedule E. The work is subject to a lot of past study that was done by both the city and the region and the landowners. And this application is really providing for implementation of that first piece to move forward with the overall road. And as I mentioned, there is dialogue ongoing with the city and the region, and our intent really is to move this forward so that the appropriate land conveyances can occur and that the appropriate work can be done so that construction of the roundabout and that portion of the city road could be coincidental with the work that the region is planning on doing now and over the next year. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions, council? I actually think that was very helpful, how you unpacked the road network. So can you just go back to that one figure previously? Where, yeah, so if, no, it was this one. So in the background, this basically shows two roads. And if I understand correctly, it's the one, like, I'm trying to figure out, because Herb's Road is to the north at the top there, and the roundabout that's shown. So, okay, so that's where, okay, all right. Okay. Right, okay. And that's the only road alignment that this application is making relationship to, right? Yes. Okay, all right. Okay, that's helpful, thank you. Okay, I think there's no other questions for you, Mr. Aston, thank you. I'll now ask if there's any registered delegations that would like to speak to this application. Oh, actually, there's no more registered delegations. Is there anyone else present? Is there one? Oh, sorry, yes, sorry, my apologies. I saw Scott, I saw you sitting here, and I got your letter, and I thought, I'm sure you registered, but on the most up-to-date document I had. So welcome, Scott, you have 10 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, members of council. My name is Scott Patterson with Patterson Planning Consultants. I'm here today to represent Keyswater Development Corp., who are the owners of the lands at 41 Ira Needles Boulevard, just south of the land subject to the official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment, and draft plan of subdivision. I am joined here today by members of Keyswater Development Corp., including Lee Keyswater, as well as Matt Ninumaya, who is consulting engineer with Walter Fady. Mr. Ninumaya acts on behalf of Keyswater Development Corp. As well and is available to should council have any questions regarding engineering matters. On behalf of Keyswater, a letter was submitted to council and staff's attention last week, which I trust was circulated to council prior to this meeting. On behalf of Keyswater Development Corp., I have highlighted two major areas of concern with proposed Waterloo Commons project at 651, 663 Herb Street West. The first concern is related to stormwater management. The Waterloo Commons lands currently contain a swim facility which is owned by the region of Waterloo. This swim facility was designed in 2004 and constructed in its current state to facilitate the construction of Ira Needles Boulevard. It is our opinion that this swim facility was designed to be expanded to accept upstream stormwater flows from the lands at 41 Ira Needles Boulevard, as well as other lands further to the south owned by Carol Cressman with the advancement of development. The Cressman's lands and the Keyswater lands are currently in an undeveloped state. When those lands are developed, the regional stormwater facility on the Waterloo Common lands was to be upgraded to address the increased flows. All stormwater was to be addressed on the Waterloo Common lands through the means of a single stormwater management facility. Under the current scenario, the stormwater management facility proposed by Waterloo Commons is designed to only accept flows from the Waterloo Common lands and surrounding roadways. No accommodation for upstream landowners' stormwater has been accounted for. This would result in the need for additional stormwater facilities to be constructed, which will utilize development lands and increase costs for upstream landowners. All stormwater facilities would eventually fall under the ownership of the City of Waterloo, and as such, this would result in increased operational and maintenance costs for the city for the long term. The requirement for Waterloo Common lands to accept stormwater flows from upstream landowners has been in place for a considerable amount of time. The report we have identifying this was from 2004, and therefore this requirement was in place when Waterloo Commons acquired their lands. The stormwater solution was also in place when Keyswater Development Corp. Acquired the 41 Ira Needles Boulevard parcel. Keyswater acquired their land with a clear understanding that stormwater management would occur on the downstream Waterloo Commons property, and we request that no approvals be granted for the Waterloo Commons project until this issue is resolved. The second issue identified in our letter was the road alignment of the connector road between Herb Street West to connect to the boardwalk to the south. The proposed road alignment on the Waterloo Commons project is for a straight roadway along their western property limit. This would result in a fixed connection point that Keyswater would need to accommodate. Similarly, the termination of the boardwalk on the Cressman lands to the south is a fixed location. The 2 points do not directly align with each other, resulting in a curved road that would need to be constructed primarily on the Keyswater lands. This will have the greatest impact on Keyswater from both a land consumption and cost perspective, and also have an impact on Keyswater's options for allotting their lands for development. Keyswater are wishing to see an equitable distribution of the road construction costs, considering they will be the most significantly impacted by the proposed roadway. Options for the road alignment should be fully vetted and agreed upon between all of the impacted property owners. As noted, there's been reference to official plan amendment number 27, which was the overall study initiated by private landowners, which has been discussed in 2019. This was an application that was submitted that was sought to have this road alignment approved. As noted, that application was suspended at the request of Keyswater, and as such, it currently has no status. Keyswater Development Corp. Wants to ensure that council are aware of these issues and would ask council to direct staff to work with all of the landowners to find a fair and equitable resolution to the stormwater and road alignment issues, so that all landowners can appear in support of one another when development applications are advanced. As the region no longer has a planning authority role in these applications, the onus falls to the City of Waterloo to ensure that good planning occurs for these lands for the long term. This concludes my comments on behalf of Keyswater Development Corp. I, together with the others in attendance, are happy to answer any questions from council at this time.
Questions, council? Questions for staff, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, we're on to questions for staff. Actually, sorry, I should just double check. Is it okay, Councillor Hammer, if I see if anyone else wants to speak to the application, and then, is there anyone else present who wants to speak to this application? Seeing none, seeing there are no more delegations, this informal public meeting is concluded, and staff will actually, no, I'm gonna move to questions, yeah. Back to questions from council. So, Councillor Hanmer.
Thank you, through you, Chair, to Ms. Fisher. We seem to have some differing information that's come forward tonight. Can you, what conversations have happened in the past regarding the road alignment and construction costs, as well as the stormwater pond and how things have to go, or are there things that are planned?
Through you, Chair Freeman, to Councillor Hanmer. As part of the previous applications that have been referred to, our OPA 27, city staff met with all of the landowners on several different occasions to talk about the options and the preferred road alignment and where the issues were. Primarily, it was identified that it became a matter of financial compensation as opposed to necessarily saying no to the preferred alignment, which is a private matter beyond the ability for any issues relative to planning. So it is something that has been discussed in the past with the owners, and you know, this is a new application coming forward now, and there may be different outlooks or opinions, so it may be advantageous to bring the broader group back together to have that discussion.
Okay, thank you. And it's part of our normal process to do those things, is it not, as you're going through just as getting opinions from the region on the reports that have been submitted?
That's correct.
Thank you.
I just want to make sure I understand, like, are we actually in a position to direct staff to do something with this? And, like, because it just feels like, it feels like we're being asked to mediate something between private landowners.
Excuse me. I do think as part of any application that we would receive from the city, we would look at the issues and the parties involved. And it is a normal course of action that we would reach out and have those conversations if and when requested. So in my opinion, it would be a normal course of action as part of the actual application that we would be having those meetings.
Okay, all right, that's very helpful. Thank you. Any other questions for staff? Okay, seeing no more questions for staff and there's no more delegations, this informal public meeting is now concluded, and staff will review the issues and provide further reporting to council at a later date. Thank you very much. Council, we're on to item 10, consideration of notice of motion given at a previous meeting. There's none, and there's a notice of motion that is provided in your council packet. We aren't discussing this today per se, it's just notice of motion. And there's communications and correspondence from Minister Calandra related to code of conduct for your consideration. Unfinished business, there's none. Questions, council? New business. Seeing none. Enactment of bylaws, do we have a mover? Moved by Councillor Bodley, seconded by Mayor McCabe. All those in favor? That's carried unanimously. And a motion to adjourn, please. It's moved by Counselor Bassick and seconded by Counselor Hanmer. All those in favor? That's carried unanimously. And my apologies to clerks. I see the agenda notes was another page that was underneath my informal public meeting that showed the other delegates. So